Thank you for joining us at the 11th Annual Concordia-Siena Conference. As you can see from the fact that it's already been 11 years, the relationship between Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability and Siena College is a long-established one, and it's always a great exchange of ideas as we continue to develop some of the themes that we have looked at in the past. Many of them are on globalization and sustainability. And as always, we're going to focus not only on ideas, but also on how these ideas can relate to practice. Social activism, biodiversity, and sustainability will also carry on that tradition by bringing together academics and practitioners, faculty and students. The idea is to have many, many voices being heard. Representing Siena is Eva Sobczynska, an expert in sustainability with a background in economics, and she's worked in the World Bank. And then we also have Dirk de Jong. His academic specialty is in the area of social work, and he comes to the academy after a long and distinguished career in the field. So we're looking at academics who are also practitioners. I'm Rosemary Schade, and I'm principal of Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this conference. I'd also like to just say a few words of thanks right now to our student associations who have worked extremely hard to make all of this happen. I'd also like to thank my assistant, Adam Suazo, who is way back there, members of the Student Associations of the Frontier, and who also, without the help you all provided, none of this would even be possible. Just a quick reminder of how the program is going to unfold. After our keynote speech, there's going to be a short question and answer session. Then we'll do a tour of the Loyola campus from about precisely 1705 to 1750. I'll have my stopwatch on. And then we're going to have dinner for the invited guests, which will begin at 6 o'clock in the refectory building. We're already in the building, it's just a matter of moving to another room. So the topic again for this conference is biodiversity, social action, and sustainability. And we're fortunate today to have as our keynote speaker, Ms. Frederique Pellerin-Catellier. Her research focuses on conservation of renewable natural resources through payment for ecological services and on sustainable development. Between 2012 and 2015, she worked for several non-profit environmental organizations in Canada, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to benefit from her expertise tonight. The title of her presentation today is Biodiversity, a Concept Linking Nature and Societies. Please welcome Ms. Pellerin-Catellier.
Well, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank everyone as well, student body as well as Adam Suazo and you, of course, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm a young professional starting my career, and it's really amazing to be here right now talking about my passion, which is biodiversity as well as sustainability. So just to present myself a little bit, as you mentioned, my name is Frederique Pellerin-Catellier, really long, and I graduated in 2009 from HEC Montreal in business administration. And then ended up switching completely to science for my master, and I did it at the University of Montreal. Finished it in 2013, and the big name of my master program was Master of Science in Environment and Sustainable Development with a specialty in biodiversity management. Oof. So yeah. Since then, I've been working in several non-profit organizations focusing on environment, 4 of them actually, and I recently joined the administrative board, sorry for my English, that is called Plan d'Action, that works in Laval to help citizens initiative towards reforestation. So consistent with my multidisciplinary background, which combines science as well as social science, natural science, and social science, I'll try to mix it up a little bit as well in my presentation and try to focus a bit on theory because I actually come from this background at university, but also on practice and what I've noticed on the field when I was trying to use biodiversity as a tool and to help whether it's citizens or government to go towards sustainability. Okay, so here we go. I have three main topics that I will go over during the presentation. First of all, I will go over the definition of biodiversity from a scientific and social perspective, because there's not only one definition of biodiversity. It's almost a bit like sustainability. It can change from the point of view or the discipline you're coming from. As I will talk as well about the use of biodiversity as a science, but also as a concept in environmental non-profit organization, and then I'll focus on ecological services and the recent shift we've seen in the discursive strategy. It's hard of NGOs in that NGOs, yes. I want to say ONG, but it's NGOs in English. So using ecological services to shape their strategies. So first of all, biodiversity is still an emerging concept. It's a pretty recent concept. It was, well, it first appeared in the late 80s, but was really recognized internationally by the Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992 from the United Nations. And if biodiversity actually started as a scientific term, referring to diversity of ecosystems, species and genes, but also their interactions in a system, the institutionalization, those are hard words, of the term through structures such as the CBD, the convention, really slowly transform it towards a multidisciplinary concept. What I mean by that is that it has become a new way to approach environmental problem. It has become, well, I don't want to start too much on this, I will go back on it later, but that's the main idea of the shift between the term towards the concept, and it invites a lot of disciplines. We have biodiversity, we have in science, but we also have it, for example, in social science. Now we talk about ethno-ecology. We also talk about political ecology, and all of that comes from the concept of biodiversity because it presents nature as a network embedding different parameters and variables, but those parameters and anyway, I just said it, also include humans. So that's the new approach that biodiversity brings. It wasn't very long before biodiversity was seen as the key to maintenance the world as we know it, and the appropriate answer for our worldwide problem, environmental problem. And because it was based on the natural scientific domain, it got recognition as well. It was seen as a hard science, which gave it credibility. From the resource management field, which I kind of worked in for a little while, biodiversity was seen as a tool, really a tool to rethink conservation efforts. Instead of focusing on endangered species or habitat that would benefit endangered species, it went towards the introduction of concepts such as fragmentation of habitat, invasive alien species, or even on governance. So it really opened up a different type of solution that we could use towards conservation. For the governance field, we noticed the appearance of what we call biodemocracy. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but it actually suggests a radical redefinition of production and productivity from the logic of uniformity towards a logic that promotes diversity. What I mean, for example, is that now it's mainly recognized that it's better to have diversity in an agricultural field instead of just one type of corn, for example, which can be a problem if we consider it in the perspective of biodiversity, which can cause a problem because of alien species or all that type of things being linked to resilience. I have no idea if you're really familiar with those terms or not, but if you have any questions, just keep them in mind and I'll be answering at the end of the presentation. So even though the term biodiversity first came from science, as I said before, the use and understanding of biodiversity has really given a shift towards a larger construction, and it has encompassed different perspectives and disciplinaries to give their input in the concept. Okay. So now I tried to use a few images just to expose my point here. It's just, I don't know if you remember, but in the 90s, 80s, and even the beginning of the 2000th century, we saw a lot of publicity coming from NGOs, that NGOs really focus on education. I did tons of, I don't know that word in English, but kiosk. Small animation with a table in the park, talking to everyone, what's biodiversity, why do we need it, making games, talking with people aged 40 and up or 10 and down. I also had a program in daycares. So it really starts from young and goes up because from what we could see in NGOs is that it's a better strategy to talk about the complex system that we are in and that in the role we have in the system to save it, than to see it from an outside perspective and be, okay, I can give money or I can save this species because I think it's cute and I know that scientists say it's important, but I don't understand why. Now I feel like in schools and with the term biodiversity, we've managed to give the general public a better knowledge of what is biology, ecology, why is it important. When I read an article in the journal, I always have a slight smile when they only talk about environmental organization want to save this frog in this little forest. Why, again, do they stop everything for this little frog? I feel that before, people didn't have the tools to see that it was not just about this little frog, but now we're talking about a frog that is in the system that if we take it out, we might have a whole chain going down, and if we want to keep a forest and other species that we like, even panda, we might need to keep the frog. So that's what I saw on the field, but as well in school. It's a bit crazy if you think about it, because it's a pretty recent term and concept that it's well now embedded in our educational system. We talk about it in university, we talk about it in primary school and secondary school. So it's really a shift in a paradigm. Can you say that in English?
Yes, paradigm.
Yeah, that we've seen in the recent years, and I'm really happy that I'm the first generation to bring it into the world, and I'm actually starting a PhD. I started on 1st of October, and I'm working with biodiversity in all of its concepts, and it's really exciting to be part of a new science in a way, and to be able to build it with the first engineers of the concept. They are not far away. They're just maybe 20 years in advance, but yeah, we had school to keep us up with the concept, and it's really exciting, and as you can see, it really applies to everyday life, and I hope you will use it as well. Just to talk a bit about a practical way we input in day-to-day life, biodiversity concept and all the related terms that come with it. I have to say that I participated in the BAP. I know in New York you might not be familiar with the term, but it's environmental study that we use at the municipal level from the government, just to make sure that a project is fair for the social sphere, but also for the environmental sphere. And as a NGO, we are invited to talk and submit a report about our view of the project. And we talked about the extension of a freeway. And at some point in time, we would have talked about maybe the frog that was being impacted by the freeway, or the less habitat we would have next to the freeway. Now we talk about, as I mentioned before, a lot of topics, and our reports are this big, because since we have biodiversity and all of the network theory that comes with it, we talk about the whole network. So what it means is that we put a special emphasis on indirect link that this event might have on, for example, other species or other ecosystems, or even for people living next to it. We include the social aspect of it. So biodiversity really helped build the concept of social ecological system, which is now the main conceptual framework we use to act towards conservation and environmental protection. Just to finish on this topic, I would also like to say that one of the main qualities about biodiversity is that for the first time I feel like I share the same vocabulary than the politician and the scientist. I've worked with different levels of government, and I read a lot of laws during my master concerning wetlands. And what is great about it is that now in laws, in politics, in office of our different ministry, we talk about resilience, we talk about fragmentation, we talk about biodiversity. We see those words in our political statement and also in our laws. So for the first time, I really feel like we can connect with different decision maker coming from the scientific point of view or coming from the social side. We share common vocabulary, interest, and concept. So I think that's the main advantage of biodiversity. Now, and that's my main focus of studies during my PhD, I would like to talk about ecological services and also products, because it's a second shift that we've noticed with the biodiversity concept linking nature and humans and societies. It appeared at the beginning of 2000 and 2001 with the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment from the UN as well. And since then we've had pleasant discussion, really opposing two types of views. Some people that see it as a way to put a price on nature, which might not be ethical, and other, like myself, try to see it as a tool, not a perfect tool, obviously, because we can't put monetary value and absolute value on nature, but I think it's been great as a link between decision makers and scientists. I felt like it was really useful, even with my friends that ask me what I do with my PhD. It's always long to explain. If I explain that if you destroy a wetland, you will lose the free gift that nature gives you to for purification of water. Sorry, the sentence was weird, but what I meant, it gives you free services such as carbon sequestration and things like that. And if you had to put usine,
Monetary value?
but if you had to build something to replace it, I don't know how to say usine.
Like a sewage.
Yeah, exactly.
Filtration plant.
Filtration plant, that would cost you money. So we tried to evaluate the value of the wetland from the value of what you would have to build to have the exact same service. So we ended up with supporting service, provisioning service, regulating service, and cultural service. What is important to remember is that, for example, a forest will give you wood, so it's provisioning. It will also give you supporting, it gives you a habitat for different species, and also regulating, as I mentioned, for carbon sequestration, but for those that like social science, this is really important. We tend to forget about cultural services that nature gives us. It gives us a sense of peace. It gives us also great outdoors activities. I don't know if you like canoeing, like myself. So those kinds of things we try to take into consideration now when we try to defend conservation or environmental projects. Also, one last thing I would like to mention that biodiversity brought is for decision makers coming from either social or natural science. I think it gave us a better understanding of uncertainties, incertitude. Because when you consider the whole network when taking a decision, you realize that you will never be able to take the best decision or the optimal decision. It's easier for us when we meet decision makers to explain to them that there are a few solutions they can choose from, and depending on their preference for risk or not, they should encourage one of the other solutions. So that was a great way to start a new shift. Well, maybe the fourth shift that brought biodiversity is to create a transdisciplinary way of approaching problem solving when we consider environment and societies. I have no idea what time it is. Is it long enough for?
You have time. If you'd like a few more minutes, we're fine.
Okay.
And if you don't want more time, that's okay too. We'll open it for questions.
No, I think I'll just finish it like this, and hopefully you'll have tons of questions for me because it's an endless topic, and I really could be talking for an hour, over coffee preferably. So don't hesitate to participate. And once again, I'm really happy to be here, and also for your nice listening, nice spaces. Yeah. So if you have questions, just fire up.
Thank you so much for this.